Hello. Welcome back to Uncommon Pallor. My name is Mike, and I am going to do a collection update today. Why, you might ask? I haven't done one in a while. Um, I actually already shot this video once, but somehow the file got corrupted and would not upload to YouTube no matter what I tried. So hopefully I have better luck this time around, because that was fucking infuriating. So, yeah, right out of the gate, the long-awaited new record by the Spitz. I have made no secret about my love for the Spitz on this channel. They're one of my favorite live bands. They're one of my favorite recorded bands, really. This one came out last month on Thrift Store Records. It is their sixth 12-inch release, and it's ingeniously entitled 6. I've described this band before in earlier videos, but just for the sake of describing them again, I would say, a solid foundation of the Ramones. You throw in some synth, you throw in some pitch-shifted vocals, you have some goofy, somewhat dark lyrical content that's delivered in kind of an oddly upbeat manner. Very simple songs, very catchy songs. Band's originally from Kalamazoo, Michigan, but I believe they're located in Seattle, Washington now. But yeah, if you're into like weird, catchy, well-written, simple punk rock and you've never heard the Spitz, I wholeheartedly encourage you to do so at your leisure. Next up, it's a new one on Iron Lung Records. It's Alien Nose Job. Once again, the present becomes the past. I've also discussed this band in earlier videos. Well, this band, it's a one-man project of a guy from Melbourne, Australia named Jake Robertson. He's in a shitload of other projects. The only one that I'm familiar with is Aus Mutants, but there's a million of them. This is mostly fast songs. There's some synth ripping through it, nasally vocals. It's well written. Sounds like it would be fun to create. It's aggressive. Yeah, I mean, there's some slow songs on here too. They have just the right amount of weirdness. But truth be told, I like this record from start to finish. I kind of slept on this band at first because the name is stupid. But I grabbed a couple 7-inches by them, and I really like them. So now I'm going to have to pick up the rest of the back catalog that I do not have. Thankfully, it's not too expensive or too extensive. So, yeah, Alien Nose Job. Get into that shit. Next, another solo project. This one from Oakland, California. And it's one that I've also discussed before. Shrinkwrap Killers. This is Parents plus FBI equals Cahoots. This is on Rockstar Records out of Germany. Was just released this year, but this was originally released last year as a cassette on Transylvanian tapes. It's a project of Greg Wilkinson, who you may know from Brain Oil, Graves at Sea, Lana de Gallus, Pig Heart Transplant. Does a lot of like production and recording work for bands. Super nice guy. This is very much in the same vein as the Spitz, but I've described them before, but yeah, it's a lot like the Spitz, but there's kind of a horror element to it, like the Hex dispensers would throw out there. I also kind of detect a bit of a surfy influence in this, but that could just be me. I could just be talking out my ass because I do that sometimes. So, but yeah, very, very worthwhile. Like, I mean, I have the cassette of this, but I'm not going to pass it up on vinyl. So I buy everything that he's released so far, and I will continue to do so. Next up from Boston, a band called Dame. I have an earlier 7-inch by them, so I kind of knew what to expect. This is their self-titled, just came out not too long ago on Beach Impediment Records. This is it's like it's very goth influenced. But it's also got a pretty hearty dose of the kind of modern, like 1-2 1-2 1-2 modern, DIY punk rock. A lot of songs that start out with like a simple bass line, and then those really lonely, sad sounding single pick note guitar lines to go with it. Vocals are kind of range from the spoken to mildly sung style. She's got a pretty good delivery. The what is it? The singer from Exit Order plays guitar in this band. Exit Order being another pretty solid Boston hardcore band. I got to spend more time with this. It's kind of more of a mood thing for me. So like I couldn't listen to this kind of stuff all the time just because it's winter and I don't want to get overdosed on Dreary. Next up from Raleigh, North Carolina, Das Drip. They're self-titled on Sorry State. This is fucking great. It's aggressive, like breakneck speed, hardcore punk. The drums give it kind of like a jumpy quality. It's very bass-driven. The guitar is kind of in the background, and it's kind of hiding behind a layer of noise, but it's just doing all this weird noodly shit. Like their arrangements are really good and very busy. Like their music's it's busy, but in an awesome way, not in a self-indulgent, get over yourself type manner. Vocals are more of the, just the spoken kind of delivery, but she's got this kind of a unique snarl to her voice that I find very appealing. I'm actually surprised at how much I like this record. So I hope this band puts more shit out and doesn't, break up. So yeah, Das Drip, get this shit. Next up on Grave Mistake Records, Destruct, Echoes of Life. I know Pat over at Ground Zero Salem, I'm pretty sure it was him that discussed this record as well. I kind of put off buying this because I thought it would be more metal-y than it really is. In reality, it kind of reminds me of maybe an American version of like Totalitar. It's, there's a D-beat influence to it, but moreover, it's just rampaging, abrasive, loud hardcore with bellowy vocals. It's it's unapologetic. It just fucking barrels over you. It's just very well played. I kind of feel stupid for putting it off and getting it, but now I have it, so it's a win-win. Next, another Iron Lungs record release. It's the new one from Gag, Still Laughing. Totally familiar with this band. I've got some of their earlier records. From Olympia, Washington. This is ugly music. It's brooding. It's just ugly. It's kind of like if you took side B of My War and mixed it with one of the modern kind of stompy hardcore bands like Warthog or something, and you would come up with Gag. Yeah. They seem to put out a lot of shit. I know there's a record that's come out since this one that compiles all their singles and stuff. So yeah. But I mean, if you like that kind of shit, if you can deal with side B of My War, get into that. Here's kind of an older one. It's from 2016. It's on La Vida es un Mus. It's a Polish band called Ohida. Self-titled. This is it's pretty good. It's the slower songs in this, like, they kind of have that industrial kind of feel. Like there's not, someone beating on a fucking stovepipe with like, a screwdriver or something, but it's just like kind of like how Killing Beat had that like pulsing beat that kind of almost made it sound like industrial or like, early techno before techno was a thing. The slower songs kind of have that vibe. Vocals are real raspy and echoey. like Gag, it's ugly music. It's like the slower songs are slow and pulverizing. Um, there are upbeat songs on this that kind of remind me of a Spanish band called Una Bestia Incontrolable. I know Eric Bauer's ears just perked up there. They're definitely not as good as that band, but that's what the more upbeat songs remind me of. So, I mean, yeah, it's not too shabby. Straight out of Poland, motherfuckers. And now we're heading over to Finland for a band that I actually thought was Japanese. I mean, and understandably so. It's the Sound the Alarm LP by Kuroishi. I probably slaughtered the pronunciation of that. Came out last year on SPHC. I knew nothing about this band, but I'm always on board with Japanese hardcore, so I threw it in an order I made, and it turns out that they're Finnish. And it also turns out that they contain 3 members of legendary Finnish hardcore punk band from the 80s, Tervit Cadet. But it does not sound like Tervit Cadet. This is full-blown, well-played fucking stadium crust. This would appeal to people into metal as much as it appeals to people into hardcore. It is, it's well produced. It sounds monstrous. The vocals are, just absolutely devastating. There's like noodly guitar leads going, ripping through the background, for the entirety of the songs. It's just very, very well done. But I actually was kind of shocked that there was members of Tervit Cadet in this. So, yeah. Kuroishi. And now we're going to get into some metal. On Relapse Records, it's Incantation, Sect of Vile Divinities. Now, I haven't fucked with Incantation since the first record. And back then I was like, it's alright, but it didn't really stand out to me, so I just kind of didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to them, up till now. And then a distro that I order from regularly had this, so I thought, I'll give it a shot and see what it's like. It's actually really good. The riffs on this are really well written. I saw Marty Worm review this in a video like just recently, and he said that people were put off by it. I don't really see why. I mean, it's not like I'm a death metal purist or something, so maybe they're hearing something that I don't. But I think this is pretty good. I mean, the band's been around since '89. One of the original Eastern U.S. death metal bands. Originally from New Jersey. Apparently now they're located in Pennsylvania somewhere. If you've been around that long, playing the same kind of shit, you should have perfected your craft, right? And yeah, they did. It's just well written, solid, old school death metal. There's not really much more I could say about it. It's not disappointing to me at all. It's actually given me the initiative to maybe investigate their back catalog a little more, because I like Incantation a lot more now than I did back then. More death metal, this time from Oakland, California. It's the one everybody's talking about. It's Necrot Mortal. It's the new LP. Now, I got their first LP just a few months back, and that was my first exposure to Necrot. Much like that one, this is on Tank Crimes as well. This is, people are raving about this, and it's, going to go on everybody's top 10 and all that stuff. I like it. I just think of it as just more of the same from their first record, really. I mean, it's just well-written death metal that relies more on the riffs than it does on speed. It's not too over the top. It's just, it's just solid death metal. I mean, again, I'm not a death metal purist, so maybe I'm, more underwhelmed by it than a lot of you hardcore fans of the genre. But I don't hate it, but I don't think it's, something, worthy of shitting your pants over. Yeah, it's good. Some more death metal. This one from this band's from Sherbrooke, Quebec. Oath Division 666. Apocalypse Division. It's a split release between D7i Records and Doomsday Machine. This is actually kind of reminds me of Incantation, but if you threw maybe a bit of Autopsy in there, it's well played. It's, I took a shot on it because the one place I order from actually had a hand in releasing it. But yeah, if it's kind of, I think it's probably one of those under the radar death metal records, but if you're into like old school death metal, then there's no reason you shouldn't give this one a shot. Okay, we're going to round this out. We got a few left, and they're all Japanese. Here is a reissue that needed to happen. Nightmare. Give notice of Nightmare. Originally released on Selfish Records in 1990. This is a fucking steamroller of a record. Raw, it's fast. There's gang choruses. There's metal tinged guitar. It's unrelenting, really. The I've never seen them live, but I can picture when they kick off their set, it'd be like a fucking bomb going off. The only thing I can think of that people might have a problem with, the drums, they're pretty much all the same. There's not much of a change up to it, but I mean, it's a powerful record. Reissued by Farewell and La Familia, but yeah, it needed to happen. Here, I believe that this is a bootleg of Gauze, Equalizing Distort, or as the cool kids say, Gauze. Discogs tells me the label's called Crash the Pose, but I didn't see that in this record at all. Gauze is one of probably, along with Gizm, they're probably the best known of the classic Japanese hardcore bands. The drumming in this is fucking great. The vocalist sounds like he's throwing up. It's, they've been around since 1981, and as far as I know, they still occasionally play out today, without COVID being around. Very bass driven. It's just straight up, just a boot to the fucking head. Yeah, they're just a great band. This was originally released on Selfish Records in 1986. But yeah, Gaz. Equalizing Distort. Next up, one of the early Japanese hardcore bands that I kind of ignored, really. Ghoul. They, I'd seen video footage of them, but I'm not sure that before I got this, I had ever actually heard recorded material by them. Discogs tells me that this is called Dance and Fight, but again, I don't see that in here anywhere. It's a Swedish bootleg. And there's the lyric sheet here has the shit on it. It's got tracks on it from the Carry Out Fucking EP, the Oi Oi single, the Hold Up Omnibus comp, the Game of Death comp, and the Jerusalem EP. The earlier stuff is, much like Gauze. It's solid, fast, well played early Japanese hardcore, and then you get up to that the Oi record. It's just one song, and it's an Oi song, but it's fucking terrible. But I'm pretty picky with that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's not my thing. And then and then for their later period stuff, it's essentially a Japanese hardcore version of Venom. So it's pretty good. But apparently the singer drank himself to death, basically, in the early 90s. So yeah, solid record. And lastly, it's another Japanese band from Kochi City, The Sexual. It's the complete discography, 1983 to 1985. It's on Unreleased Records. Limited edition of 200 vinyls. Tracks taken from the Suicide Flexi in 1984, the Last Days Flexi, a compilation that I cannot pronounce, and then there are unreleased studio tracks recorded in 1983, and unreleased live tracks recorded in 1983. This starts out as fast, like hardcore punk with kind of a, like a bouncing beat and like pretty powerful guitars. But there's metal in it, and there's metal in the vocals. And then they just kind of, transition their way into like just basically a straight up metal band with Japanese hardcore leanings. There are some pretty sucky slow songs in here though, but when the sexual is, at their high point, they're really at their high point because it's really good. But some of those songs are fucking god awful. So yeah, I guess that's all for me. That's all I got. That was a lot of shit for one go, but whatever. Eat it. Later.